Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to Out of the Park Baseball. It's episode 21. So, as we are now into the second tier and we are in preseason, we're getting ourselves set for the year. I might not be done wheeling and dealing just yet, but we're getting pretty close to what our roster is going to be for the year. So, we're in the off-season center taking a look at how the teams across the league have progressed. And honestly, only a few teams have really made solid gains. Detroit, Hartford, Philadelphia, 6 to 5 wins above replacement gained. You then have another few teams that are doing decently, 3 to 4 gained. And then, the majority of the league is right where it was or actually dropping in terms of their quality. And as we look through team by team, you're going to see a trend in the more often than not category. Anchorage, 5 players in, 13 out. Austin, 7 in, 13 out. Boise, 3 in, 11 out. We're going to see that over and over again. Yes, there are some. Calgary is one of those exceptions where they certainly brought in more than they lost. But if you look at what they've picked up, they picked up a good, solid right fielder. But then it falls off pretty quick. You got 3 relievers on their list of gains. On the loss side, Warren Liu, 3-star starting pitcher who becomes instantly the third or fourth best guy in the rotation. So, middle rotation starter for us. They also lost Gillis, who, back end rotation kind of guy. So, sure, they've made some gains, but mostly in the relievers department. And yes, one solid player additionally, but even their team honestly is losing more than it's actually gaining, or it's about neutral. And that's one of those teams higher up the list, 8th. Cincinnati just being relegated. Only 3 players in, only one of them actually contributing through free agency. And then they lose 6 players. They lose multiple guys that were key contributors. Matsuda, 5-star talent. This is, a key element to that team a year ago that just got relegated. 500 at bats for him, 30 homers, 65 RBIs. Matsuda was definitely not replaced. And for a team like Cincinnati that was relegated, for them to have a vastly negative total means they're going to be quite a bit worse than they were a year ago. They were so bad a year ago they were relegated, and they're going to be worse. Now, the only difference, though, of course, is that, this team, the Cincinnati Reds, that roster, even if it was last place at the major league level a year ago, it's not equivalent last place here. It's going to be quite a bit higher. They could be yo-yoing. They could be going right back up, even though they're actually considerably worse than they were a year ago. They're going to struggle to stay up if they do yo-yo, though. Okay, top gain team is the Wave Riders. They picked up my Eddie Yean. Where did he fit in for us? He was, 5-3 overall, 69 innings. Eddie Yean is labeled as a starter for them, but he was a reliever for me. ERA was better than 3. I mean, he was pretty good. He had 99 Ks in 69 innings. But he was at the back end of my bullpen. And so a lot of these pickups they've had, outside of this trade, he's only a 2.5-star guy. I don't know how he put up the kind of numbers he did last season and why his wins above replacement is so high when he's good defender, good power, okay-ish hitter, nothing great. how his numbers were so high, but either way, they do get some pretty high gains. And even them, right, 13 in, 14 out. They lost a few key players. We picked up Tucker Davidson. Tucker Davidson is somebody who is probably just going to be flipped. I got Tucker Davidson for virtually nothing. Now, for us, I've been active. I've been very active. Now, if you continue down the line, the trend that's going to continue before I talk about us here much is that a majority of the teams, 20-ish out of the 30, a dozen plus players out, half a dozen or so in. That's about the average for 20 of the teams. There's very few teams that have more players in than out. You can see here Fort Worth, pretty good solid pickup. Brad Keller, 3-star, great movement, expensive signing. They also got Yerzy and Beer. That was my latest trade, Yerzy and Beer. Beer was my starting guy a year ago, but you can see that 55, 55, and just a 50, where we now have a 55, 55, 55, who's also okay as a defender. He was a, 45, 50? Beer, just a 35. So we've definitely upgraded that left field position, and Beer was right in the middle of the lineup a year ago and really didn't put up great numbers. I mean, he 272. That was it, just 10 homers. 61 RBI. He had an okay season, but moving up a level, he just wasn't going to be enough. And so we have made an upgrade there. We also made double upgrades at first base, where Yerzy was the starter a year ago, and he's definitely decent as well, but he only hit 232 because contact isn't very high. Homers, RBIs were certainly okay, but again, the defense, just so at a 50. So I packaged those two together. What I got back in return, Manny Perez, somebody who can step in, 3-star starter to replace Seth Beer. We went direct for that replacement, and for this one, he doesn't have a ton of power, but he's going to hit the ball way better. 55 contact, 60 eye, 65 defense. So definite upgrade to left field. Not as much power. I mean, we're losing 17 homers here, but this is a guy who's actually going to get on base a lot more. He's not going to drive in quite as many runs with that level of power, but he's going to ultimately balance out the hitting. I think he's going to have similar OPS to ultimately what Seth Beer had. And we've already upgraded the middle of our lineup in another way with another trade that we made. But he's also going to provide us much better defense. And that was a weakness last year. Our defensive rating was not the worst in the league, but it was pretty low. We weren't helping those pitchers out a lot. And playing at a higher level, I definitely needed to make some defensive upgrades. And this is one of those areas where we've certainly gone in the right direction with that. The biggest trade we made, though, Adamits played 5 games as a pro. He was a AAA guy for the last couple of years. He was a good AAA guy, but he wasn't great. ERA was 3. When he came up to the pros, barely under 6. So Adamits just didn't offer us a whole lot. And you can see his evaluation right now not looking so good. And that's why I've let him go. Now, he was better when he was here, and I think that's a rough estimate. He was a starter, by the way. Dan Stevens, we picked him up in a deal and then turned around and flipped him first base. I was deep there. He was one of those guys that I kind of 2-for-1'd some weaker minor leaguers. And then Corey Nebel. That's a big give up. This was a late setup guy who was fantastic. But he's also 33. We picked Nebel up on waiver wire, so he never actually cost me anything. He was the key piece to this trade, and yes, My bullpen got weaker as a result, but we're going to have access to the waiver wire from the major leagues now that we are up into the championship, and that's going to allow us to replace. Maybe we won't find a like for like, but to me, giving up a reliever when they are a dime a dozen, even if he's a good one, is worth it, especially when you consider what you get in return. Now, there was a couple other minor league pieces that were added in. It was a full 5-player trade and cash, because what did I get in return? Jesse Winker, as in Seattle Mariners in real life right now. Doesn't put up the greatest numbers, but look at what he has talent-wise for our level. He is a true 5-star guy. Contact 70, power 60, eye 70. He has some gap power. He is going to put up some huge numbers at the championship level. Look at his stats from the last 3 years. Seattle, and then on to the Dodgers, and then down to Fresno, who we got him from. Fresno last year, he hit 337. On base, 441. Slugging, 562. This is a 1.0 OPS guy. 1.0 OPS, 91 RBI. This is what's replacing Seth Beer in the middle of the lineup. Massive upgrade. Massive upgrade. Now, he could play left field or first base, neither terribly well. Which means more often than not, I want him to be my DH, but this is a middle of the lineup kind of guy who's going to increase our run production. Like I said, the move for left field for Manny Perez, almost equal hitting, but a solid defensive upgrade. Replacing our middle of the lineup guy who was mediocre on his actual output with a massive upgrade. So all it's actually cost me is Corey Nebel and some minor leaguers that weren't the biggest prospects that we had. There was one more pretty solid prospect. I don't remember who it was, but there was one more solid prospect in there. But I've been busy. 13 in, 30 out. Most of those are the 2-for-1 deals that I've been running the last couple of seasons that have really turned this team around. Those 2-for-1 shop player packages are a great way to make upgrades. It's also a great way to go, hey, nobody's offering me a solid upgrade. Moving on to the next deal. But you do get those offers. You do get the right 2 players packaged, and you get something better in return, making you ultimately stronger. Now, in terms of the wins above replacement, they've only got us pegged at 1.4. But what did I give up, right? We already talked about a couple of those key things. Yerzy was okay. He had a good year. He had some power. He got 55 RBI, but was just okay on defense. So again, we upgraded first base. Winker is not going to be playing that defensive. Yurchak, okay, well, he's similar. But Yurchak, look how much better Yurchak is as a hitter than Yerzy. 70 contact with decent power. And that's why Winker's going to play a little bit of first base. Yurchak's going to play a bit of first base. And then, left field. These guys are kind of going to rotate between those. Winker's going to play a little left, bit of first. Those two are going to play a bit of both. But Winker's always going to be in the lineup, right? DH, definite option, but we have the 2 second basemen. So how does that fit in? Well, also occasionally third. I'm going to have an interesting depth chart this year, I think, in terms of how I balance the lineup on a daily basis to give people a rest, because I basically have one guy more than I have positions for. And so it's going to kind of rotate on who's getting their day off, keeping a really solid lineup instead of having a pure backup, having to play once or twice a week, having starter quality play daily because we have more than enough players that are starter quality. That's another difference this season. But anyway, yes, we lose quite a bit in terms of wins above replacement in some of the guys we let go. Some of them AAA. John King is out, but John King's only a 2.5-star guy. Very low stamina. He had a good season. I mean, his ERA was about a 3, but you push him up to championship and he's probably going to be about a 4 with low stamina. I found a couple pitchers that are a little bit better. He was already 30. I think he's already just starting to fall off. So good time to part ways with him and find something back. But I've found multiple starters that can provide us with something a little bit more. Like Lou, who, had a 2.1 ERA last season, albeit as a closer. Pushing him back over to a starter. He's got good stamina. Numbers don't translate quite as well as a starter, though, as they did as a reliever. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think I'm quite done yet on making some moves. My rotation, I think, needs to be addressed a little bit. Catcher is a position that definitely needs to be addressed a little bit more. And I'm thin at reliever, but I do think the waiver wire is going to resolve that. Now, in terms of down to the minor leagues, we've got pretty much everything we need there with 2 exceptions. Relievers, not enough to fill out the organization, though the draft will eventually take care of that. We certainly have enough to fill out the 3 top tiers outside of the 2 short season leagues. But then also catcher. Top to bottom throughout the organization, outside of McCormick at the top, is incredibly weak. I'm really struggling to find decent catchers to add in. We drafted quite a few guys. I've got some with potential. I've got a few, anyway, with potential that are in the organization and certainly worth hanging on to, but I lack numbers and I lack players that can play here and now. The backup we have, Cisco, who we traded for recently, moving up a tier, has been downgraded from a 2.5-star kind of guy to a 2-star kind of guy, and needs to be bumped down to AAA. And that kind of needs to be his home, or I need to trade him for other assets. But it's hard to find a good catcher in the trade market. It is. It's hard to pick them up. And haven't seen anybody really that I want to get after in the free agency market because they seem to get pretty big contracts. Well, anyway, despite the quality we gave up, and remember, we got a lot of wins last season, we're still somehow above that win above replacement level we were at a year ago, but a year ago it was very high, and we've managed to get even better. But knowing that we're going to play at a different level, it's interesting to see how it's going to kind of pan out. But we're getting a Jesse Winker who is... a lot of these guys were championship level guys that we're bringing in. And these are third tier professional level guys that we sent out that had a good year there. Where we're bringing in guys who had good years here. So I think the numbers aren't quite matching properly in terms of comparison, and therefore I think we've actually even improved quite a bit more than the 1.4 suggests. Enough rambling. Let me go ahead and go over the roster and how it's looking right now as we are getting close to set for the year, like I said. Now that everything's relative to championship, I'm getting definitely different evaluations than what we got in the past. Trevor Richards, who we brought in last year and picked up 38 saves. I've moved him from closer to our setup guy. The reason why I've done that is Treviso, who we just brought in, has a bit more and had 32 saves last year. So Treviso, the stuff isn't quite the same. It's not quite as good as Trevor Richards, but you can see the movement and control are significantly better. Significantly. So, and Trevor Richards, even though he's showing a 70 for stuff, That's against righties. Against lefties, it's only a 65. So he's good. He's very good. But I think you've got just a little bit more with Treviso overall. In addition, we're talking about 5 miles an hour in terms of velocity. Also, Richards, fly ball guy, where Treviso's a ground ball guy. You want a ground ball guy when you're trying to close out a game who's got 75 on the hold, so they're not going to get steals there in the ninth inning where they're trying to play small ball. It's inducing ground balls, so they're less likely to hit homers that are going to suddenly swing things. I think Treviso gives you that little bit more, even though the actual stuff isn't quite there. There's enough things that make him a little bit better. Also a lefty. Perez, still pretty solid. He's got good stuff. He's got good movement, and he's got enough control that lefty is our seventh inning man. And, that alone shows you that, hey, Nebel might be gone. He was our eighth inning guy last year. But with Treviso here, Treviso's bumped above Richards. And Richards I really only had in the spot because he's a closer, and Nebel's not. And so Nebel was an eighth inning guy. Nebel was better than Richards. But, you seeing that we're kind of pretty much at a wash in that department. And ultimately, we traded out a couple of guys, or really just one other, I think. And we have not lost anything essential from our bullpen. The one player we brought in, who we got on the cheap, one of those 2-for-1 of, I think Yearn was either involved in that one, Yearn the one who's out, or a couple minor leaguers. Either way, it was not at an extreme cost. Now, the starters, on the other hand, rebalanced for one thing. Ramsey David now in at the one spot, 4-star guy. This is the one I'm a little nervous about, as that translation up a level. Some of these guys have been bumped down, like CJ Eldred. I'm pretty nervous about Eldred's ability to hang at this level. Last year, 3.2 ERA, but I'm guessing championship, he's going to be up where he was the year before, which part of the year for Kansas City, only threw an inning there out of the bullpen, but was championship a year ago, was just 3-7 with a 5.1 ERA. And so I am nervous about a couple of these guys, and I want to make some upgrades. Eldred, first and foremost, because he just doesn't have the stuff and doesn't have the movement. Liu, not the greatest either, especially at holding guys. Brickhouse did okay last year, but I think he's going to struggle at this level. He's got great stamina, but so I've got a couple more really necessary moves to make. Liu is apparently an upgrade, but doesn't seem to actually be that much of an upgrade, other than he's got some good velocity. But I don't see how he's making us better. Maybe better than Eldred. Bukowskis. Where's Bukowskis at? He just lacks control. So he's got the ability to get guys out, but he lacks control. I think he's more of a specialist. Needs to be in the bullpen. So you can see why I want to address the starters. I've already made a couple of moves, but it's not enough. We've got David. We've got Nowicki. Liu, maybe. He's not translating to be quite what I thought he would be, even though he's got that 3-star evaluation. But I think I've got a couple extra starters. I still have some minor league pieces. I want to try to flip these guys. Seth Martinez we just brought in. At the moment, though, scouting accuracy is low, but the OSA rating was also similar. 3-star guy. Has stuff, has movement, has control for this level. Doesn't have the greatest stamina, but he can pitch. And so Seth Martinez is definitely going to make it into the rotation. I think Eldred, Bukowskis, and Brickhouse are all guys I need to move on from. Seth Martinez can replace one of those. Maybe Liu. But I'm not so sure about that one at the moment. So, yeah. Deals still to come. I think I've got 2 spots in the rotation still to fill here during the preseason. But here's where we are looking so solid. We're going to put up a lot of runs. We were number 1 last season in offense, and our offense has gotten better. We have most of the same guys back, but we've made those couple of moves. Same catching, combination. McCormick, no longer 5-star guy at this level. He's 4.5, but that makes a lot of sense because he wasn't perfect anyway. Cisco, I would love to have a better defensive upgrade at catcher, so you can have that replacement over your top guy. There's another one we just recently picked up, Borafon. I think this is a temporary one though. Borafon, I picked up Borafon for 2 half-star kind of guys, and he's not making big money, and he's only 23. What's he getting paid? League minimum. So I picked up a 2.5-star center fielder who was he was on like Cincinnati's roster or something like that. Or who was it? Okay, no. Whoever that is. But anyway, they just wanted rid of his contract. He wasn't good enough. But he's good. They just wanted to clear up a roster spot. So we got him for nothing. He's got trade value. So I'm looking to flip him. Suntek Sol. Sol is a guy I picked up as a free agent. I think the best free agent that we managed to sign this year. 70 on the power. Decent enough on the defense. And with the moves that I had made previously, I definitely needed an extra outfielder. That gives me a 4th. Manny Perez, Rayleigh, Ibarra. So not a great, but solid enough outfield. Rayleigh had a great year last year. I don't think he's going to have the same sort of year this year, but, good enough. Ibarra, solid leadoff hitter, gets on base plenty, scores a lot of runs. Holder has now finally been replaced in the starting lineup by Rivera. These two are so similar, but Rivera's just a little bit better. We still have Holder around as a good solid backup for maybe one more year. The lefty, 30 years of age, so probably the last year, but then we'll move on from him. But Toro, somebody that I brought in, minor upgrade at third base. Not the greatest defensively, but we also didn't replace a great defender there either. Hudson and LeBoy, this is where we have that extra, right? Because we have Winker, Yurchak, Hudson, LeBoy, and then Manny Perez. So we have 5 guys for 3 positions, and plus DH, so 4 positions, and all of them deserve to play. All of them are good enough to play. And that's the thing. This lineup, these guys can hit. I'm still not quite done tweaking it how I want the lineup necessarily to be, or how I want that daily depth chart thing to kind of work out week by week, but got some work to do. Have some work to do, but we are close. So you can see the lineup's good. Bullpen's still good. 3 starters are good. 2 rotation spots to sort out. My 5 starters in AAA, for comparison, as we are trying to fill 2 spots. For that 5th spot, I think there's definitely some options. Kronowski. We're looking at guys that have really solid stuff. 60, 55, 70, 55. Campbell's not enough. So, rule him out. He's the 5th starter down there. Kyle Cody, another one that I just brought in through trade, but he's only a 2.5-star kind of guy. But he played for Texas last season, 61 innings out of the bullpen, but 7.5 ERA. When he played for them the year before, when they had yo-yoed, he had a 10-2 record, 23 saves, 99 innings, in ERA under 3. So Cody looks like he could be a solid option, maybe out of the bullpen. Certainly capable, but not great. He's the only one with good control though out of the bunch, and that's the problem there. So I think I'm gonna end up flipping Cody, and there's another one of those where we want to find an upgrade, combine some decent players to get just a little bit more. Essentially, I have 2 spots to fill, 2 starters. Those are the last moves I need to make. Kronowski, not quite there on the development yet. He needs a little more movement and a little more control. I think if I can get him to a 50, if I can get him to, a 45, 50, with that stuff, that's enough to get the call up. Says he's ready. I don't think he's quite ready yet. He was in single A year ago. Has grown, has developed, but yeah, not ready for the major leagues just yet, even though they say he is. Another trade. No. McMillan was also at single A year ago. I think both of these guys, Kronowski and McMillan, were drafted in our first draft. No, not McMillan. McMillan is somebody who we got in through trade. After the trade, we had him playing single A year ago. He was 11-11, got 200 innings in, had a very good season. Very good season. But it was at the single A level. And again with he's okay, but he's not major league ready. So, and he looks to be as good as he's going to get. So McMillan, Cody are probably pieces that I'll use to try to flip to get that 4th starter, 5th starter. And then Medej is somebody who's almost ready. Almost ready. He's got really good stuff. He's got enough movement on it. He just needs some control. 90 walks in 156 innings. 4-12 overall, 5.5 ERA. He's got the potential. He was my 2nd or 3rd round pick a couple years ago. And he's been in AAA both years. He had a better record the year before, but the team had a better record a year before. We gutted the team quite a bit last year to get ourselves into that winning position. So for him, continue to wait for control. Kronowski's close. Tempted to let him be the 5th starter, if we can at least find the 4th starter. If we can make one more solid, 4 good days, 4 good starters, plus Kronowski to get some time to get up to that level and develop, or Medej for that matter. But Medej is just a little bit further off on the control side. But yeah, that's where we stand, and you can see we're close. I'm thinking I'd be okay with 4 solid starters, and then by committee the 5th one, young guys develop for the 5th one. So really one more move to make. I've got a Cody, I've got a McMillan. We can try to get it from there. We've got those couple of guys who are up there that aren't quite at the level they need to be at, that we can move some pieces on those. So we've got the pieces to make it happen. Now we just need to find it. Right now, 31 on the active roster, so we are about 5 too high anyway. And those couple of starters could help lock that down, as we're about 3 starters too many up there anyway. So I'm going to make that one move. I'm going to play out the rest of the preseason, and then we're going to get into the next year. But this team is really starting to shape up to be at least very capable offensively here in the championship. And I think they'll be okay pitching staff-wise. I don't think we'll be great. So what does that translate to? I would hope we're looking at 500 record. Hopefully we're making the right move here, as there's a little bit of risk involved in this one because our scouting accuracy is only average. But the OSA rating is identical, though it's only low. but we both seem to have a very similar idea. They have him a little higher on movement. I have him a little higher on fastball. Everything else is the same, meaning you would think it's not going to change too much. At the very worst, we're looking at a 3-year deal on $2 million a year, meaning he's very affordable. He's also durable, and he has pitched well. His ERA plus has been high. His wins above replacement have been high every season. He was professional and championship. A 3.77 ERA last year. 186 innings. I mean, he's what you want. He's what you want in oh so many ways. More so than that, extreme ground ball, high velocity, 3/4 arm pitcher. That's good. 65 on the stamina, 55 to hold runners. That's enough. And even if he doesn't quite translate, if this is not exact, if the movement's only 55 instead of 60 kind of a thing, he's still an upgrade from the guys that we're going for. So Heisler is in. Plus he's still got potential, so he's not even there yet, and it's McMillan and Cody who were given up to get him. And we're going to end things here with preseason predictions for the upcoming year. So New Orleans and Matanzas looking at somewhere around best records. This is for the Patriot League. You have Grand Rapids with the best predicted record in the Central Division, while in the West, Cincinnati at 80 and 59, looking to do the yo-yo. Oakland in the same division, 74 and 61, equal with Las Vegas. Looks like that's going to be a pretty tough division, just 5 teams there and 2 major league outfits. Weird for Cincinnati to be in the West as well. In the Loyalist League, we're going to be a little smaller. For one thing, we only have the 15, where they have 17 teams in their league, so that already gives you a little bit better odds, 2 fewer teams to compete against. Detroit, not the Tigers, the Wave Riders, predicted to have the best record, the only plus 500 record in the East. It's 76 and 60. Moreno Valley in the Central Division at 71-65. Shreveport just above 500. And in the West, it's Miami. The Miami Marlins look to be the best team at 83 and 52. Yes, Miami playing in the West. Geographical considerations not taken into account at all when they were placed in this division, obviously. And myself at 76 and 59 on paper. That is a half game better than what they have for Detroit. I've seen that the schedules aren't quite balanced. You don't end up with the same number of games played by teams. But it looks like we are going to be neck and neck, on paper anyway, with Detroit for the second promotion spot, with Miami looking to have the first. Predictions: runs, 649, best in the league. Average 270, best in the league. Home runs, 109. We don't have the greatest power, but stolen bases at 88. Predictions have us second behind Irving. Defensively, not as good. Still a weakness. We are second from bottom. Albuquerque, the only ones predicted to give up more runs. ERA at a 4.2 is third from bottom. K's, 1,055. That's about average. And walks, 398. A little higher. Now, if I have not changed my rotation yet to include our new man. That alone might make a difference in that department, and we still have that one more slot to fill. But it's quite clear that offensively, they have a lot of faith in what we've put together. Best of the league. Defensively, yeah, work to do. Now that's enough to be a plus 31 in run differential by the end of the season. That's not a lot. It's not a lot for that type of record. So if we're going to push for the best record, if we're going to push for back-to-back promotions, we need to improve, in particular, our starting pitching staff, because relief-wise, pretty okay. But like I said, I think we have one of those moves already secured. Just need to swap them out in the actual rotation depth chart, but I think we still have 1 to 2 more to go. In fact, I think I have 2 of those guys ready to get bumped up. So, yeah, that's the key here at the moment. Top hitters, Winker, 3rd on the list. LaBoy makes the list as well. Surprised Hudson doesn't, but okay. I've picked up one potential easy upgrade, but potential-wise, it depends on the scouting accuracy. It's very low at the moment. He just signed with us. This is a minor league deal. Catcher. He's about to turn 34. He's pretty old, but for us, short term anyway, this is an obvious upgrade at backup for catcher. He's better defensively, and he's a better hitter than Cisco. Terrible record in St. Louis last year, but 41 at bats, 3 hits. Yeah, not good for major league level. But for us, you might do okay. 2022 championship level, started 109 games, almost 500 plate appearances, hit 21 homers, had 64 RBI, hit 249. 2.9 on the wins above replacement. He did okay. A 111 on the OPS plus. So, decent. And on a minor league deal, cost me absolutely nothing. And to get him back into the majors would be a minimum contract. That roster is really close. I'd still like to make one more move for that starting roster, but starting rotation. But otherwise, things are looking pretty dang good at this point. So we're just going to be making our way through spring training and into the regular season. I know a lot of chatter this time. No actual progress in the year itself. But it looks like prediction-wise, we're going to be in competition to make it back-to-back promotions or being close, not far off. And so I'm trying to turn that not far off into that a little bit better. I'm trying to find that, one piece, 2 pieces. But it's hard. It's really hard. I've got, at this stage, half a dozen 5th guys in a rotation, and nobody seems to want to give me anything back in return better than a 5th guy in the rotation. So they want to give me back 1 of what I'm giving them 2 up of in order to get, where we're not making any actual gains in that spot. Likewise, backup outfielders is all I can seem to get out of those 6. I did get rid of Liu, who, though labeled as 3 stars, isn't. He's a little bit worse than Bukowskis, and Bukowskis is 2.5, and that was direct head-to-head, almost identical type pitchers. And he was on a 13 mil contract, so we dumped him. I got him for almost nothing because he cost 13 mil, but we traded him off, and we got another whatever out of it. I think I actually ended up getting a little prospect. Anyway, I think Reyna was a nice little free agent pickup, even though Yes, 33. But we'll wait until I get that scouting back to determine whether we want to bring him up to the major leagues and, take up a roster spot, which is at 30 right now. This guy, Reyna, would put us at 31. That's 5 more we need to offload before the season. But instead of waiver wire, that would absolutely come through trades. Either package deals to get prospects back or an upgrade if we can find one. Having a hard time with that at the moment, as the guys that have seemed to have kind of maxed whatever value they can get back, which is similar value. And 2 down to 1 of similar value isn't going to help me. Anyway, regardless, I think we've made a lot of really good moves. The Jesse Winker deal in particular has really, really strengthened our lineup. Just need to strengthen that pitching staff a little bit more. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.